Hey everybody, Joe Orsak here. I'm the writer of the song Your Heart for Me, the Prodigal Son Song. And I wanted to record a quick little video before you get into watching the documentary to explain better. I feel like we didn't fully explain this question as well as it should have been explained. Why are you recording a documentary about a song that most everyone hasn't heard, written by somebody that most people haven't heard of? And the answer is this. Along the way, while we were recording this song and doing this project, at every step that when we sat down to work on this project, something crazy happened. Whether it was physical injuries, whether it was sickness, whether it was really genuinely bizarre things that I don't even like to talk about. I saw a demon in my bedroom the night we began the project. And I'm not a guy that sees angels and demons everywhere. In fact, that's the only time this has ever happened in my life. And I'm still not real comfortable talking about it. I'm not making a nickel on this project. My channel isn't monetized. I don't plan to make it monetized. I don't care if this video had 1 billion views. Any money that was ever made off of it, I would donate to our church. Here's me on film saying that. To God be the glory. This story is really genuinely compelling. There are some amazing supernatural things that took place, and I think it's a story that needs to be told, and the people that we've shared it with have said the same. So I hope that you will watch the videos as they've get released, and that you'll comment and share your thoughts, and along the way, I hope that you'll see the amazing wonder that it is to walk with God and to have a relationship with Jesus Christ.
So we're doing this documentary on a song that nobody knows and 2 people that nobody knows. So let's start with you, Greg. Who are you and how did you come in this project?
Well, Joe and I have known each other for, 35 years?
Yeah.
Joe and I met, we were in a band together for years. Then after that, we left and opened up an IT company for years. Then we went our separate paths, but we always kept in touch. We're always close. Joe's my pastor who baptized me, was instrumental also in bringing me to Christ later in my life, which is obviously the best thing that could happen to anybody.
Right.
So we have a lot of history together.
Yeah. What about you, Joe?
You know, the getting at your question, we're 2 guys that nobody knows, talking about a song that nobody knows. And maybe, by the time they see this, they've heard the song, I would imagine that would probably be the case. And I do hope that it goes, around the world and that everybody gets to hear the story because it's an amazing story. But, why are we doing this documentary? That's like the real question at the beginning of this,
Right.
Why does a song written by a guy that nobody knows, recorded by a guy that nobody knows, deserve a documentary? And we were kind of asking ourselves that question. It's like we'll get outside opinion, and everybody that we kind of mentioned or roughly told the story was like just kind of, wow, that's wild. Yeah. And that's how you got roped into this project.
Right.
As a videographer, I'm like, Jarvis, let me tell you this crazy story, man. See if you think this merits a story worth telling.
But the thread was laid and the fabric was about to be sewn. And I was unaware of certainly what was going to happen and what this was going to become. And I'm sure probably to some degree Joe was too. He had to be.
Right.
But God knew.
Okay, Joe, how did this song come about?
Yeah, so you got to go back a long ways.
Started with the dinosaurs.
Yeah, right. Well, I've known Joe for 5 years.
At least, yeah.
At least, and he's played this song continuously. I mean, every Sunday, and every time we got together practically, he's played this little riff. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to make a song out of this one day. One day I'm going to make a song out of this.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it came to fruition. But how did it come about?
Yeah. So roughly about 15 years ago, I have small hands. not starting 15 years ago, always. But about 15 years ago, I had always kind of struggled with being able to play octave-related stuff on the piano. It's just a big spread for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started working on this echo melodic thing as just purely as an exercise to brain train myself to be able to quickly play octave stuff. And out of that, the opening of this song grew. And just over time, that melody became one of the favorite things that I'd ever played. And then that turned into the chord structure for the rest of the song and what eventually became the whole song. And yeah, I just never had words. Nothing ever came. And it wasn't for lack of trying. Nothing just ever sat. It just gelled. So I just kept playing it. I enjoyed playing it. It was what I felt like was a really pretty piece. And I tossed around ideas and stuff, but nothing ever came. Whether it was part of God knew I had to develop a certain amount of skill to be able to effectively play the material, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, God had a plan for what this was going to do 15 years back. He knew where this was going to go. How many times do we see that? David in Scripture gets anointed as king, and it's 15 years before he becomes king, and that sort of thing. So it's similar kind of thing. God has a plan, and we can't always see that far down the road.
Yeah. So Joe, we talked about the origins of the song, but how did it actually come to fruition? What's the timeline? When did you start actively working on the song again?
I had recorded a song for my daughter, I Still Love You, and that's on YouTube. Please go watch it. As we were finishing that up, I played something for Greg that was this song. I said, hey, at some point I want to record this. And can we, just lay some tracks down? And so we recorded that, and
it sat there for 3 years-ish until...
On a hard drive that just...
Well, yeah, on my system, because when we finished up with I Still Love You and he was going back home, he mentioned this song, and can I record it real quick, just to have it for a scratch?
Right.
And I said, sure. So we hooked him up. He played it in one take, and I remember going, that's really nice, Joe. It's really pretty, And he talked a little bit about maybe some ideas, but nothing that was fleshed out in any way. No arrangement, no vocal stuff. And he left, and it sat on my hard drive in the studio for 3 years-ish. And then, as you will come to learn, everyone listening and watching, it was much more than that. With this incredible story, God just, dragging us through the history of what this thing would be, and we didn't know what it was and what it would become, and it was an absolutely incredible journey.
Does every tree that falls over in the forest, is it pushed over by an angel? No, obviously not. You look for natural explanations first, but at some point you're like, this is just too weird.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that.
Yeah, the whole point of this documentary that Joe brought up, it was Joe's idea, and he talked about it, fleshed his idea. It didn't take very long talking about it. I'm like, absolutely, we need to do this to tell the story, because there's a lot of supernatural events that occurred. Some of them absolutely unexplainable.
Right.
Others that, maybe coincidence, maybe supernatural, we don't know, but weird. A lot of those, it just, in context, all of it, we needed to tell the story, and we want everyone to know maybe this will inspire somebody. Maybe this will bring somebody to Christ. Maybe this will strengthen somebody's faith and their walk with Christ. But we felt Christ was so involved in this and led us so diligently that, and Satan involved too. We right in the middle of this full-on spiritual warfare that, literally we are in the middle of.
Right.
That we'll talk about in this documentary. So as you'll see, we had to tell the story but it's not about us.
Yeah.
It's all about Christ.
Yeah. So, Joe, we've been talking about supernatural events and spiritual warfare. Tell us a little bit about that.
Once we actually got out here and started the sessions, that's when stuff started happening. And at first you kind of play it off, you don't really even think about it. It's just the random issues that come up and all that sort of thing. But there were some pretty dramatic events. And for that, we have to start in the studio. I think that's a good time.
The father rose from tending fields when he saw his son leaving home and him.
So, Joe, we're here in the studio now. So we've been talking about some spiritual warfares and supernatural events. So tell us how it all started.
I get to the studio, we set up, get all the equipment ready to go, and I play Greg the song, just getting refreshed on the piece. And I play him the whole piece. And right off the bat, Greg made 2 producer calls.
Yeah, I thought the song needed to be rearranged a little bit, so just made a couple of quick production calls on it. He had a long intro, and I decided I thought the intro was a little bit too long to get into the vocal, and so I said, let's split this up, have a shorter intro, and then we need a bridge.
So the intro got broken into 2 parts. We actually used the second half of the intro in leading into the second verse. First half is in the intro, the beginning of the song. Second half is in the middle of the song, and then we bring back the beginning of it at the end as a coda. And then the bridge. And the bridge was the craziest thing.
There was no bridge.
Yeah, there was no bridge. If this were any other song, I probably would have been in panic mode at that point. And I have always struggled with a bridge. I don't know why, brain block or whatever. And so when he said that, it was, again, the most bizarre thing. So that's why I said we had to start talking about the crazy supernatural stuff with this part of the song. Because when he said that, my reaction was just to say, well, how about this? And I started playing. And I played the whole thing through, and he had one comment after that.
I liked it. And we talked briefly, and I said, but change this last chord, go here. And he goes, okay, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, bingo. And he went, I like it. And I like
it. It's really wild. It was just how about this? Yeah, I like that. Change the last chord, go up instead of down, and bam, we were done.
So you've been working on this song
15 years.
For 15 years.
Yeah, and instantly wrote a bridge.
Yeah. Why do you think that happened?
Well, we're about to find out. Because that bridge was just indicative of everything that God was doing with this project. He had a plan, and that bridge got held back for 15 years, and just bam, all at once, there it was. And that part of the song becomes the next part of the really dramatic God stuff, just God doing a really powerful, emotional thing. And that's the next video.
Yeah, I'd like to make a last comment on that, is that it's sort of like God went up to the spigot and turned it, and it's dripping a little bit on the bridge. It's a little water flow, but he's about to crank the hose open on Joe.
Okay, Joe, last segment, you talked about something that could be arguable, but give me something that's undeniable. You can't, say it's arguable or...
Well, if you don't mind, let me start on this.
Yeah.
Because I need to do a segue for him.
Right.
Because this is Joe's story.
Mm-hmm.
So after we got the arrangement down, which we talked about before, and we tracked the piano part, Joe went to bed around 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, and I stayed up another couple of hours or so editing and listening to the piano part, working, and I went to bed about 3 o'clock-ish, and about 5 o'clock in the morning, I hear all this kind of ruckus, footsteps and shadows going back and forth repeatedly, and and him singing, muffled, and I'm like, what is he doing at 5 o'clock in the morning, and so I went, well, whatever, I went back to sleep. And so I get up about 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and I went immediately into the studio because I wanted to know what was going on. And I see this broken, disheveled, crying person. When I came in, he got all excited. He goes, Greg, I don't know where to start. I'm like, yeah, what happened? Obviously something happened, and he goes, I don't know where to start. And he tells me this story of what happened to him that night. And I was pretty shocked. But Joe, tell us what happened, buddy.
So, I went to bed. I know we have a long day ahead of work, planning on getting to a good 5-6 hours of sleep and getting up and going. And I could not go to sleep. I just had anxiousness. I'm not an anxious person. That's not my MO. Looking back on it, I understand. It was just, oppression happening. I had a very restless sleep. Fall asleep a little bit, wake up, fall asleep a little bit, wake up, that kind of thing. Somewhere around 5 o'clock, 5:30, I don't know, somewhere in that range. And I woke up, and as I'm looking around the room, at the end of the bed was this creature standing on the end of the bed. And probably the best analogy that I could give somebody, the little gray aliens, the big black eyes, like that, although its body was more boxy and its head had ears that went just up into points on each side. So not like the gray alien, but that's probably the closest reference I could give. And it was just on the end of the bed looking at me. That's pretty unnerving.
Yeah.
I don't fear demons, and I've never seen a demon before in my life. And even afterwards, I was questioning myself, was I dreaming? And I'm like, well, no, because I never went back to sleep. And that was a big key point for me. And so I laid there for a while trying to calm myself down, and I could never go back to sleep. It was just too disturbing. And so I got up and I went and made some coffee, threw on the bathrobe, and Greg's got some comfy bathrobes. And he keeps the house like, a refrigerator.
No, my wife keeps it like a refrigerator, but my gear doesn't mind that.
Yeah. But so I threw on the big, comfy bathrobe, got some coffee, and I'm just like, let me see what Greg, worked on the night before. I pulled up the chair, sat down, put the headphones on and hit play. Started listening. Everything was sounding great. I was really happy with it. And it gets to the bridge from nowhere that we talked about in the last video. Why that moment, looking back in retrospect, became even more of a God moment was because of what took place in this moment. After that whole bizarre demon thing, when I get to this bridge, all of a sudden, like a fire hose, a video, words, everything just started.
Melody?
Well, yeah, melody, all of it started flooding out. It was truly overwhelming. That's such a weak word, honestly. Overwhelming is weak. All this stuff was flooding out. The feeling, the heart of the song. And so I'm trying to write. I'm writing as fast as I can. I would have to stop the song, and I started crying, and I got emotional about it because of what God was saying in the song. I was a blubbering mess by the time I finished, and just how much God gave me and the heart of the message, and I get emotional. The heart of the Father. Ultimately, this song became about the prodigal son. You have in the bridge this conversation taking place between Satan and Jesus. and Satan is accusing the Son at his lowest moment. And you watch the video, he's eating out of trash and everything else. All the money's gone. It's just horrible, you know, drugs that were implied and all this kind of stuff. He's hit rock bottom, and there's Satan accusing. He's not making up stuff. It says daily that he stands before the throne of God accusing the saints. He's not making stuff up. We sin, we blow it. It's all true stuff. And the back and forth with Jesus and Satan at that point is, you know, do you see? Yeah, look at your boy over here sinning. And Jesus is like, yeah, I see him. What about it? And Satan then says he won't believe, as if to say he won't believe that his relationship could ever be restored with the Father. And that's where he screws up, because he's trying to play God in that moment and say what's going to happen in the future for that man. And that's where he messes up. And Jesus turns to him and rebukes him. We don't have this in the video because I don't have a $500,000 budget for CGI. So we had to do the best we could with conveying it. If you guys want to volunteer for CGI work to get this done for me, let me know. But you see this radiant Christ, the Christ of Revelation, with the flaming eyes and the skin like burnished bronze, the white hair, and he turns and looks at Satan and he says, you believe, and shake and tremble, right? You don't get to say what's going to happen with him because he's mine. And he banishes them, and that's when the lightning strikes. That's when Satan is cast out, and it gets really intimate and really soft. And God was giving me all of this, the video, the words, everything. How do you deal with that? It's like, whoa, man, you know, it was in 4D, you know?
I'd like to make a comment on that real quick to help the viewers understand the impact of this. A couple of things. One is somebody, a non-believer, for instance, can say, yeah, well, that's just a person's imagination. He was dreaming. He was hallucinating, whatever they want to say, right? So I was obviously had questions. Anytime something like this happens, everybody's going to have questions because we want to verify, you know, we want to know that it's not somebody's imagination, for instance. And of course, the first thing I'm asking Joe is, you know, were you dreaming, and, you know, these kinds of questions. And he explained to me and said, no, I know I wasn't dreaming because I never got up. I never woke up.
Yeah. I never went back to sleep. I was
right.
just awake.
And I went, oh, okay. I said, well, what happened? What did you? We just stared at each other, and was there any words conveyed between? No. Any sounds? No. Well, what happened? He said, well, it was about a minute and a half or so. I don't know exactly the time, but it just kind of faded away. And I'm like, well, it's kind of weird, you know. But the point I want to make here is with a couple of other pieces of information I got with Joe. Not that I didn't believe Joe and I thought it was incredulous or anything, but as an inquiring mind, I want to understand. I wasn't there. So he gave me some information that was plausible. I'm like, okay. But the thing is I've known Joe for 35 years. I know him intimately. He's not schizophrenic. He doesn't have psychological issues that I've ever seen. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't,
Right.
but I have no evidence of that in 35 years. He's never given me one iota of behavioral information that would have me question this.
Right.
In the least. He's a man of God. He's my pastor. He's my spiritual mentor. He baptized me. I mean, I trust this man implicitly. With my very life, I would trust this man. So if he tells me he saw a demon on the end of my guest room bed, there is no question from this man right here. I do not question him. And I'm sure you've known him for a while too.
Yeah.
He hasn't.
I've known him.
Has he ever given you any reason to doubt him?
Never.
Never.
He's always true to everything he does.
Well, I appreciate y'all saying that.
And he's just a man of God, and he's shown me that so many times. The other thing about this that's important is that it took me weeks or into months for me to fully understand the story and the characters and the vision he had and the things he had in his head that God had given him, all this stuff.
Yeah. That was part of the weird experience.
What I'm trying to get everybody to understand is that this happened to Joe in a night.
Yeah.
Where God flooded a human brain.
You have to keep it in context of all the stuff we said just before. I had nothing.
Yeah, we had nothing.
We had
no lyrics, no melodies, no
nothing.
How am I going to phrase this? What's it about? What's the lyrical content going to be? What's the philosophical angle? Nothing. And he gives me a vision in his head that God gave him of the actual video.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Right?
what I wanted to point out is like y'all been working together for so long. How is this interaction different than times before? And that just
Pure
shows
God.
you that it's from
Yeah.
a higher power.
Imagine it took me multiple sessions and weeks or months over time for me to get all the information to him to transfer that information to me. Joe got all that crammed into him in 2 or 3 hours.
Well, instantaneously, honestly. It was.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you still had to process.
Yeah, I had to process it.
The
Yeah.
fire hose.
But all of that stuff was just crammed into him. So I'm trying to get everybody to understand what Joe must have gone through. There's no way we can fully understand. But I knew something happened that was big and somewhat traumatic because I saw this exhausted, exhilarated man that couldn't wait to funnel it out to me. I got to tell another human being about this. And it was amazing for me. And that is when this whole thing started. I'm like, wow, it's like buckle up.
Right.
All right, Joe, we're at the point where we're deciding on who's going to sing and all this other stuff, and somehow you end up singing the thing. So tell me how that worked out, because we have a singer here, a lead singer. So
Yes.
how did that happen?
So as I mentioned in the last video, I sang the part for Greg in the morning. He's like, yep, that's inspired. I was excited by it. And he's like, hey, can I sing this? And I'm like, absolutely, you're going to sing it. I planned for you singing it. Off we go. I'm not a great singer. So we get to the end of the day. I am about to leave. We've worked all day long. We're both exhausted. And I have the idea that, hey, let's just drop a reference track on this, a scratch track, to capture the vocals, just so, we don't forget and you have something to work on. From there, Greg's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, we can do that, And
Yeah, I already planned on it. Joe beat me to the punch, but yeah.
So he grabs a mic and off we go. And it's the magical SM57. Tell me a little bit about that, Greg.
Yeah, so since we were just doing a scratch track that I was going to use later for reference, we didn't really care about quality. You're going to actually record the actual track with the proper high quality gear and the proper environment with the proper production to get the best performances later, and you're not ever going to use that scratch track. So we didn't need any of that, so I didn't have to go into my mic locker and get some of my expensive microphones and all that kind of stuff. We were going to do that later. I was going to sing anyway. So I went in and grabbed a quick, easy mic, a Shure SM57, but it didn't matter. I'm like, yep, here you go, Joe. I plugged it in, wired it up, armed a track, got a signal.
No mic stand,
Yeah.
no pop screen.
Yeah, nothing. No isolation booth with nothing, just because we're going to throw it away. And he sang, one take, boom, hey, good job, man, have a great day. Well, call me when you're free and we'll schedule the next session. And that's how that went down. So later that night, after Joe left, I want to go in and tinker. And about an hour into cleaning it up, I just realized, I'm like, this is an incredible performance. I'm like, and I made the production decision. I'm not singing the song.
Yeah.
Joe's going to sing it. Not only is Joe going to sing it, but we're going to use that take. We were so blessed to do that, Joe, for you and I to say, just let's do a scratch track, because that whole weekend and everything he went through was funneled through that performance.
Yeah.
I could hear it in his voice. He was so emotional.
I should point out that the line in the chorus that for me is the most passionate And it's the heart of the song. It is the meaning of the whole song, is the Father saying, just come to me, your heart for me. And that ended up being the name of the song. And I think the final point for me is that this is indicative of God's behavior in humanity all throughout history, is I will take the lesser vessel, the broken vessel, that with their heart for me, I can do all things.
Exactly.
I can show up and show off through an SM57 that's not on a mic stand, without a pop screen, in one take, through this dude, because right now in this moment, his heart is sold out for me.
Right.
And it comes through. You know, it just came through in the performance. And
we have, some good news that you're going to be singing. You're working on the vocals, on the computer, everything. So speaking of the computer, that's where we're going to go to next.
So part of the as I call it, the circumstantial evidence for the supernatural and the spiritual warfare that was taking place is all of the tech issues that we had, and the small miracles. Because on one hand, we had so many tech issues, and Greg and I had spent over a decade in the computer business together. We're both very tech savvy, and he's recorded thousands and thousands of hours of stuff and never had the volume of issues, not even close.
Not concentrated.
Like this, It was one thing after another.
pretty early on, as you'll see, some of these examples in the story will become clear, but pretty early on, Joe and I started realizing, which all of our Christian brothers and sisters will know this, we're like, Satan's not real happy right now.
Yeah.
He is on this, man. He's doing everything he can to sabotage this.
It was just extra. It was just
constant
extra
stuff.
So this is testimony that all these people that are saying, oh, when you become a Christian,
Oh yeah, no.
to be this holy of holy.
No.
No.
It just gets
further
harder.
from the truth.
It just gets harder.
Yeah, there's adversity.
Yeah, for all you non-believers, the closer you walk with Christ, the more you're in the bullseye for Satan.
Yeah. And that's a great segue to this point, because I don't want it to seem like it's all negative, all like, oh, Satan was just on us the whole time.
Oh no,
it's
glorious
and-
times.
Oh yeah.
And that's true, but there were just tons of wonderful little,
That were too easy.
yeah,
That just
little miracles, brand new software that you don't know how to operate. You're figuring it out, and you just land on this glorious part. My favorite example are the female vocalists that we have on the album. And we both of us can't remember who had the initial idea, but we both liked the idea that we wanted to capture this kind of a Middle Eastern feel in it. And he didn't have anything. He went out hunting for stuff. We had discussed it. Okay, great. Log that idea. Off I go. He's doing his Greg thing and putting like 12,000 hours into a song. And he just sends me this, and it is beautiful. Beautiful. I mean, how many times I was like, made people listen to it at church and stuff. I was just like, oh,
laptop and
yeah.
headphones.
Yeah, and the headphones. I'm like, yeah, you got to listen to this,
Favorite parts of the song.
And
It's short.
They just wove together and blended. It was just on the fly creativity. And so, it's like on one side, it's like Satan has come to steal, kill, and destroy, right? But on the other side, we were made in God's image, and God is a creator. And I don't think we're ever as close to God as when we're creating beauty and bringing beauty into the world. And he just moved through Greg like crazy in that piece. It's just beautiful. And, string instruments that were good, but then you just magically land on some other stuff that sounds so much better and fits better. And it's not that one is a better quality or lesser quality. It's just the perfect instrument for that part. And it just was perfect. It's so much of that. That again, on that side, you're going, it's so much good stuff that it's not coincidence. So much bad stuff that it's not coincidence, so much good stuff. It's a circumstantial evidence video.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, Joe, you've got a chorus, you've got a bridge. Where's the rest of the song? How do you get to there?
Boy, wasn't that the question. The first part, to be transparent, is you go off in your own strength and your own abilities to try to pull it off, crash and burn, in a miserable heap on the side of the road, and then, call for rescue. Yeah, I went home and I had that state of panic, God, turned on his fire hose and dumped all these words that were really powerful to me, and video and everything. And then now I've got to try to follow that up. So I wrote some stuff.
That was the problem.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. and we'll get to that. We're going to get to that. So yeah, I wrote some words, and I shared them with Greg, and both him and his wife Sharon were like, nope. Nope, it's your song, dude, but no. And I argued with him about it,
Well, first as the producer, I kind of nixed it.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't bad. It just
wasn't what
right.
It wasn't at the same level.
It wasn't right. And then I let Joe argued with me, and I went, okay, well.
He's like, it's your song.
I mean, I let Sharon hear it, and Sharon's like, nah, I see what you're saying. It's not bad, but. And then Kim, right?
Yeah. So then I Kim got home from work or whatever, and my wife, and I let her sing it, and she got the jackhammer out and nailed the last coffin nail in.
Yeah. Everybody nixed it.
So then you're in a state of panic. It's like, what do you do with all that? And so you pray.
You pray.
And it wasn't as powerful of an experience, as overwhelming of an experience as the first time, but it was as impactful. It all came again. All of the words just kind of flowed out all at once. I mean, literally, with all the sections of the songs, it came in 3 different parts: the bridge and the last chorus, the first verse and the first chorus, and then the second verse and the second chorus. They all came together in those chunks. And they all came the same way. After I struggled and really then kind of dialed in, by the last, second.
Well, after you submitted to our Father, is what.
Yeah, so
it's like you kept trying to do it, going, okay, I'll take it from here. And he's like, no, you won't.
Yeah. Weeks went by, and there's nothing. Praying about it. After I had that first section, he was like, yeah, this is where it needs to be. I'm like, oh, cool. It was a victory. And then I'm praying about it, and nothing for a while. And I was like, the thought that really, really struck me was that the second verse and the second chorus, this is where everything has crashed. And it's, he's hit rock bottom. And I'm like, it really has to have a different feel and a different emotion from the first part. So it's not like a typical verse chorus where you just go repeat the same kind of melody, same, phrasing, that kind of thing, and do that.
And the same sentiment.
Yeah, it was all completely different. And so I prayed about it a lot. And when it came, man, it was more emotional than the first and the first verse and the first chorus, because the beauty of it really hit me. And it's so weird talking about your own thing. I've said this since the beginning. I've never felt less responsible for something I created. So when I'm talking about it, I feel like I'm talking about somebody else's thing. But it's like when it got to the point where he had the crash in his life and everything was tearing down, and you see him out on the street with a sign, lost everything, please help. That's a heartbreaking moment. The line that comes in is just fall. It's falling down. How things change. Everything's crashing. Just that alone, I was like, oh, you're good. You're good. I just knew when it was from him. I just knew. And so anyway, that's the only way. Stop, drop, and pray.
All right, Joe, so you have a demon on your bed. So Greg said there was at least 2 more, right? So let's dive into those.
Oh, okay. Well, I know Joe's going to deal with another one, but one that happened to me was near the end of the project. I have like 9 external hard drives that I back up all of my projects and all of my life on. And I would do that pretty regularly in our sessions. And so I had gone on a trip after one of the first finals. I did a backup on all the drives, and I made some editing changes in the song, and I didn't know if we were going to keep those. And so I saved that on my desktop, and then I backed that, the other part, the non-change stuff, I backed all that up on all my other drives, right? And so then I left, and I came back on a Sunday, and I was excited to get back. Opened up the session, and I get an error saying missing 313 files, WAV files. Okay, so I was not panicking yet, but I said, wait, what's going on? And I'm troubleshooting first, and then I go, okay, well, let me go to another one of my backups. Same thing. Then I go to the one on the desktop where I'd done that edit that I didn't know if I was going to keep. Same thing. Now I'm starting to panic because I kind of already know in the back of my head all the other backups are going to be that way because I did all the backups with a single copy. I went and checked, and yeah, they were all corrupt or missing the waves. And then I keep one of these in my gun safe. That's my whole life in case the house burns down or something, you know. And so I backed it up on that too. I pulled it out, obviously, and checked. Same thing. Now I'm in panic, despair, terror mode because I'm thinking it's gone.
Yeah.
The mix, it's it. We're done. There's no more work on this song production-wise. The mix that I have, and we had a mix before I left. That's going to be it forever.
How did you feel about that? How did you both feel about that?
I just said it was terrifying, despair, bewilderment. How did it happen? Anger, loss, inadequacy to God. Oh God, Father, I failed you. I wed him, and then anger at Satan. Again, he's, you know, it's like, is he going to win now? He's finally going to win.
Right.
You know, it was hard, man. I spent 6 hours before I called Joe that Sunday. I had to go to work the next day. I spent all afternoon from like 12 till 6, 7 o'clock at night looking. So I go in and try to recover a Windows Restore Point. No, wouldn't. I didn't have it. I went and decided, okay, let me go buy some software. So I did a bunch of stuff, and I went and actually purchased software, file recovery software. I got some free versions. It found a lot of the files. Didn't work. So then I purchased software. Went and did that. Didn't work. Now I'm freaking out. That's when I call Joe and I say, this is not, you know, this is the phone call you don't want to make.
Right.
So then I'm experiencing all those thoughts, but it was unusual. I had one side of me that's the tech side. I'm like, okay, let me give you a couple things you can try. I'm like, we're going to call the software manufacturer. We're going to see if PreSonus, we're going to see if they have any recovery tools. Went there, there were a couple things, right? So I'm like, yeah, there's options still. There's options. And we were on the phone a while talking through stuff, But I'll tell you, I never had a point where I was freaking out about this situation. Wow. And by the end of the call, though, he was on the same page with me. If this is God's will, it's God's will. If this is it, this is it. It's God's will. It's in his hands. It's his project. It's been his since the beginning. He's
going to make it more glorious in its current version than we could have ever thought about doing it by making it better.
Right.
So we just were at peace with it.
Right. Yeah. So why are we talking about this as the second example of undeniable, miraculous, supernatural?
that night, this is 2 or 3 days later after it happened, I discovered all that. I am, on the session, kind of look at some stuff, and then God talks to me and says, go look on that hard drive you have in your gun case again. And my first reaction was, I've already looked there.
Yeah.
He goes, I know. So I go open the case and I open it up, plug it in. I look on there and I see the one that's bad. And what do I see? A folder right under that. It's an old mix, a session of the same song, because I always have dates on them, that was about 3 weeks old, that I didn't see before. When I deleted the actual sessions I had been all up until that 3 weeks ago, I'd left that there and never saw it. Even when I went back and did backups, I never saw it. It was right next to the other folder. It had the same name on it, except the date at the end of the naming criteria. So it's going to be in alphabetical chronological order in Windows in a folder hierarchy, right? Never saw it. The only one on 9 hard drives. Okay, that's not the unexplainable part. So I'm just beside myself. I grab that, throw it in the session track. Throw it in my drive to open it. It opens up. The session opens. All the WAV files are there. And I was just dancing around, praising God. Called Joe,
Mm-hmm.
Now I knew it was 3 weeks of lost work. It was going to be potentially a bunch of work. And then I'm working, and I go back and work on the stuff, and I'm start thinking, what happened? How did this happen? This has never happened to me before. I've done hundreds of mixes. I've never had this happen before with all my backups. I've never lost sessions like this, not once. So I have to go do some research and read about folder hierarchies and stuff and how Personas works on Studio One and doing this. And I find out there's this media folder, and that's where the waves are on all these other sessions. That's what was gone, was inside the session folder, a subfolder, this media folder, as I recall, was gone. So the question is, how does an interior subfolder disappear? You don't go inside that main folder and copy all those and select them in a group and copy and paste. No, you go and copy that main folder.
Right.
And everything inside that folder is going to be copied with it.
Right.
When we paste it somewhere. That's what I did. So that's the supernatural. That's what happened. Somehow a subfolder went missing inexplicably. And I still right now, and so does Joe,
Bob.
we don't know.
Bob.
We have no idea still. It's unexplainable.
Both of us had reached the point with the project where we are tired. We've been working on this for a long time.
Getting burned out.
We've put a lot of time and energy into it, and this was God forcefully refreshing and doing a reset, because ultimately we were now put back in the position where we had to rebuild some stuff, and we would have never done that by choice.
Well, what happened, I have to kind of expand on that a little bit, because there's a part in the song before all this happened where Joe wanted an arrangement change. It's right when Jesus is rebuking Satan. It's this big climactic part with a choral and just, it's big, right? Very big and cinematic. And then it just immediately breaks down with this beautiful piano part. Mm-hmm. And then one line coming in. Back in Jesus is saying, he'll rise again because I rose for him. Joe said to him, to his ears, the end of the climactic part, and then this intimate part that comes in, the climactic part kind of stepped on this part a little too much. He wanted some more space in there to let the climax fade in, or out rather, and then the intimate part kind of fade in. And I listened. I said, let me listen. And I did, and I called it back. I said, okay, I think that's a good idea. I said, I don't know how much we need to add yet, 2 beats, a measure. I'll play with it. He says, okay, whatever. He says, I trust you. And I remember calling, I go, this is better. Mm-hmm. This is better than the first arrangement, the way I did it, the way I produced it.
Yeah.
And I called Joe and said that, and I sent it to him. Mm-hmm. And he goes, man. He goes, yeah. He goes, this is great. Yeah. This is beautiful, dude. Yeah. And we look back on that saying, we wouldn't have done that. We were too tired, we were burnt out, and we think God knew that. He goes, y'all aren't going to do this on your own, but I want you to make my song better. But you know the way we thought he did it? Was he went in and deleted the media folder supernaturally and made us do this whole thing over? I mean, we don't know, but
Right.
it's just weird, man.
Through tragedy and adversity, he builds this, more beautiful version. Yeah.
To us, to close that story out, hey, if anyone out there wants to contact us and give us an explanation, I'm all ears, but we don't really understand that. We think that was a pretty big supernatural event and unexplainable to our pea brains.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've heard the song, right? And
Watch the video.
watched the video, right? But I thought y'all had some, production in mind. So how did the video come about? And tell me a little bit about that.
Actually, you and I had talked about maybe shooting a video.
Yeah.
That was very much kind of in the plan. And especially since, with the bridge and all that part, God had given me this really strong image of that segment of the song, which still to this day isn't in the video. So where did this video come from? I went looking for videos, and I typed in something along the lines of modern telling of Prodigal Son. When I came across what became the video that we have. When I found the video, it was a 12-minute long narrated story. No music to it, and it was just a person talking. And they told the story of the prodigal son, to this modern setting. And so when I saw it, I was like, oh, this looks pretty good. This looks contemporary, like I was kind of thinking in my head how I would go about wanting to film a modern looking version of it. I said, this will serve the purpose as a placeholder. I downloaded the song from YouTube, not even looking at who did the video or anything about it, because again, I had zero interest in actually using it as the long-term one. I was just going to show it to somebody to say, yeah, I want to kind of capture a modern telling like this.
Right.
That was it. And I just started playing with the video.
Yeah.
And editing and cutting down and moving parts around and making very slight little video changes to effects and fades and that sort of thing to fit timeline. Because how do you take a 12-minute story and cut that down to 4 minutes? It's really hard to do. As I edited that story down, it became more and more perfectly fit. And when I shared it with Greg, he had kind of the same reactions, like, man, this is powerful.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how we ended up with the video. The wild part is what happened after. Because now that I have this video that I've, butchered all up, and I'm like, I have to find these people so that I can reach out to them and talk to them about a collaboration, and can I get approval to use this and all, because now I want to use it. And to date, I have spent over 30 hours, somewhere between 30 to 40 hours, just searching for the original video.
Right. Yeah.
I've tasked other people to find it. Again, I'm a tech person. Again, I know how to do reverse image lookups, I all kind of stuff, right? I went to the YouTube history, but by the time I got to the point where I was like, I want to use this video, my history was already gone. I went through cache files. I'm looking for my internet cache, but I clean my computer regularly, so because I'm a tech. So I'm
searching
like,
metadata.
Yeah, all this stuff. I put some significant effort into finding this video, and still to this day can't find it.
This is one of those, in my opinion, the last of the three triune, unexplained supernatural events in this whole project, and that was this disappearing of the data to find out who these people are. And from Joe's, I mean, I've talked to him about it. We can't find any. I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
Not just the video. We can't find any information on the actors, who produced it, who directed it, the photographer, who. Nothing.
I'm sure they're out there, but it's just like they just appeared for the moment in time.
Yeah.
And for me to find it, and then they're gone.
It's gone, and it's not just that it's gone. It's like we can't find a shred of data on it to track it down. I mean, it's just like gone.
Jarvis had the experience today too. He went through every YouTube short related to Prodigal Son, hundreds of them, on the 2-hour trip, out here, and he couldn't find anything.
I mean,
so
I thought
that kind of stuff.
One, I say supernatural. Maybe it is. Maybe they just pulled it.
Yeah.
Obviously that's a possibility. However, I would still say
it was just got
really they pulled it right after when we got involved with this. Why didn't they pull it last year?
Yeah, and it was up there for years. It was not. It was like a 7-year-old video.
It's like right after we get involved, and not only get involved, but after we make the decision, or Joe does. Really, I'm going to use this video.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
That's when he go. Well, now I have to go find them to get rights.
Yeah.
Gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
They may have pulled it. It could have been a coincidence, but here we go again.
Yet another coincidence.
With these
added to the stack.
Weird coincidences, and timing is like, no.
Yeah. Just God had a plan, and he had that plan from the beginning. So there we go.
Yeah. So if anyone knows who these people are, because I asked Joe, well, what are we going to do? He goes, I'm just going to use it. And
I'll tell everybody right now, anybody that finds this video, I'll pay you $100. No questions asked.
All right, Joe. So we're at the end of this. We've talked about spiritual warfare. We've talked about supernatural events. You brought us all on this journey with you, with God. What's been your takeaway through all this?
This song was an intense journey. And I kind of have to tell the last day that Greg and I had scheduled for getting together. And I was going to be out here all Friday and Saturday. So Thursday night, I just wanted to relax at the house and to just enjoy some time with the wife and that sort of thing. We were sitting outside on the deck, and we didn't fight, but it was just tension. It's like we were bickering about everything. It's like everything was said the wrong way, taken the wrong way. It was just one of those evenings. And Kim and I really don't fight. We get along exceptionally well. I mean, shoot, we've been together over 30 years. I even at one point realized, I'm like, this is Satan just trying to stir stuff up again. I'm like, this whole journey has been like this. And so I even prayed, and that kind of got back on track a little bit. And then it went south again. Talked it out and kind of got things smoothed back over. And, we ended the night on a good note. And so I woke up in the morning and I asked her to pray. But it's the last session. We really need clarity. We need fresh ears. Just, let us hear everything to make sure it's all good. And I headed out and got to Greg's house. And when I got here, he had spent hours messing with some new tech issue. Hours. He even thought he lost, work and all kind of stuff again. It was just, But he got it working, and it was, we lost some time again. But we got it all going. And we prayed and stuff, and off we go. We had a good session. We worked all afternoon, and I went to bed, I don't know, like 11 o'clock. I didn't go as late. I was tired. About 2 o'clock, I got a phone call, and it's Kim. And she's calling me a little bit frantic because Ethan, my youngest son, had been in an accident. He delivers pizza on e-bikes and stuff. He had crashed the bike, hit a curb or something, and he got pretty banged up. We were worried that he had a concussion because he was kind of loopy to begin with. She's like, we're keeping an eye on him. Think he's going to be okay, but I just wanted to call you and let you know. So I'm like, woke me up at 2 o'clock in the morning, Right. Freaked me out, just enough to freak me out, and now I got to try to get back to sleep, Right. So I go to bed, go to sleep, fall back asleep, wake up in the morning, grab my phone. I got texts. I got a whole bunch of texts. I start reading the text, and Kim is telling me that during the night, Ashley had gotten a fever. And the fever spiked really high, and high enough to really concern. And so she was like, I think we're going to take her to the emergency room. And then her nose started bleeding. And that's the first time that's ever happened. She really freaked out about that. But then they've got the fever to come down. And, I'm reading all these texts. She's like, I think she's out of the woods. We're going to keep an eye on her and go from there. I'm like, good grief, just the son, the daughter, So I'm like, okay, they got that squared away. Then I checked my email, and it's a client, and the client is super upset. Something happened, while at the job site, and they're talking about maybe canceling the contract and all this stuff. And I'm like, at that point, I'm like, okay, I know what's going on here. Like, Satan, you're a punk. Just like, it became too obvious. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna let it bother me. You're a punk. I know what you are, and I know what you're trying to do. I'm like, I'm gonna tell Dad on you. So I started praying. I hopped on social media. I posted kind of about everything that happened. It was kind of a lengthy post, like 4 paragraphs, and I requested prayer. And man, over 100 comments. It's on a long text post. And shout out to my old Columbus friend, Beth Herchek. She was telling me to pray. And it's like every hour while you're working on this project, you take time to stop and pray. And if you feel attacked, pray. And just, pray. And I'm like, already doing that. And I'm going to take it up a notch from there. I'm not just going to pray, I'm going to praise. So I put on The Blessing. Great song. And I just had a moment praising. And we are in the middle of a drought in Texas at the time, over like 90 days without rain. And the morning was gray and overcast. And I'm sitting here just praising with a gray sky when I feel my face warm up. And I open my eyes, and the clouds had parted, like right above me, right in front of me, and this like sunbeam is shining on me. It was the craziest thing. I'm like, all right, God, now you're just showing off, man. And it was, God, I felt so much of God's presence and so much of God's love in that moment. It was really amazing. And I prayed and I said, God, give me a verse, speak to me. And I was like, I said, give me a verse of encouragement. And I'm like, no, I don't need a verse of encouragement. I just want to hear you. I just want you to speak to me in this moment. And, just as a few times in my life, God has given me something where I hear something clearly. And this was one of those moments where he said, Psalm 148. And I'm like, what 48? And then I just kind of got the end. So not a verse per se, but the end. And I looked it up, and what I got was this verse. And he has raised up for his people a horn, the praise of all his faithful servants of Israel, the people close to his heart. Praise the Lord. Whew. Let me tell you, man, when you pray and you say, I just want to hear you. I just want to hear you speak to me. I feel like I had just went through that trial. And, he attacked my kids, and he attacked my income, and he had attacked our emotions with tech issues and just all this stuff. And to go, no, I see it for what it is. I'm calling it. And I'm going to pray, and I'm going to praise God. Even in the midst of the trial, I'm going to praise him. I'm going to uplift his name. It was one of the few moments in my life where I felt like I got it right. And to say, I just want to hear your voice, Dad. Just talk to me. And to get that kind of a confirmation, he lifts up a horn, the praise for his people, a people close to his heart. Woo! Ah, man. it was just beautiful. It was really beautiful.
Right.
And so, you know, that is a long-winded story to say, what is the takeaway of this whole journey? And it's that, you know, is that God has this heart for us, this love for us, a song, a horn of praise for people that are close to his heart, how much he cares for us. The dad is like that dad in the video, sitting out there on the porch every day, looking down the road. Is this the day that my child comes back to me? Well, that concludes our story. We had over 5 hours of content that had to be edited down to just that hour and some change that you watched. I have a newfound respect for directors and people that make those kind of decisions. It was such a tough call. What do you keep? What do you leave behind? But ultimately, I hope we made the right choice and you found the story compelling and interesting, and that you realize that there is a spiritual warfare that takes place and that prayer is so important. Ultimately, I hope that you were reminded that even if you are a prodigal and you're somewhere down that road, or if you have a prodigal child and you're praying for their return, I hope you remember that God's love for us is unceasing. Just like the father out there on that porch every day, he's looking down the road. Will today be the day that my child returns? Please visit prodigalsonproject.com and tell us your story.